Typically on this channel, I talk about AI tools that other people have made and how we can apply it to business, but today I want to talk to you guys about something that I have made. As you can see in front of you, today we're looking at Jarvis, who is a voice-to-voice AI chatbot. He works inside of the command line and runs locally on your system, meaning this could technically be open source tech. The entire thing, every single line of code within this project was written by ChatGPT 4. I have some very basic coding ability when it comes to Python. I understand how the language works and syntax and how all that needs to be written, but in terms of writing the code itself, I have zero capability, zero knowledge. I don't even know how it works. So everything was written with ChatGPT 4 based on my instructions and my prompts, which that again goes back to the conversations we had about how important prompting is. Not only how important the prompt itself is, but how important understanding how prompting works is. So as I already mentioned, Jarvis is a voice-to-voice chatbot that uses speech recognition technology to hear what you're saying into a microphone, convert it to text, send it to ChatGPT, and then play that back to you in an AI-generated voice. This project strings together multiple different API keys, including ChatGPT, 11 Labs, and Bing. All three of those are being used in their own ways to give Jarvis its own personality, give it its own way of functioning, giving it its own memory system, and giving it capabilities that the regular ChatGPT does not have. And as you can see, we have a lot of documentation here. So this is the document that I've written going over how to use Jarvis, how it works, how things can be adjusted, how the customization works. And that's really where I want to talk to you guys from an AI and business perspective. Jarvis is not fixed, okay? He has a lot of customization ability. He has a multiple personality mode, so you can dynamically switch between how ChatGPT behaves. You can have it switch personalities, switch opinions, expertise, knowledge, whatever you want to change, you can do that without ever having to restart the system. So there's a lot that can be done here, and instead of going line by line and talking about it, I would rather just show it to you. Okay, after some more debugging, we are finally going to go over the Jarvis demo. I'm going to try and let it speak for itself. I may put it to sleep so I can say something to you guys, like giving you context on how things work, but ultimately I want to talk about everything after the fact. So I want to give you the demo, and then we'll address any questions and how everything works on the back end afterwards.
Good evening, sir. Jarvis here at your service.
Hi, how are you today?
Hello, I'm here to assist you. How can I help you today?
What is your name?
I'm an AI assistant designed to support and assist you. You can call me Milo Hall. How can I assist you today?
What is my name?
Your name is Nick Popoff. How can I assist you today, Nick?
It's really great to meet you. I just wanted to say hi and let you know that you now have a voice. Could you please reply in only one sentence?
Thank you, Nick. It's a pleasure to meet you too, and I'm here to assist you with anything you need.
Refresh.
Rebooting systems and restarting operations. Would you like to select a new voice?
Yes, please. Preview 7.
This is a preview. Would you like to select this voice?
Yes, please.
Voice changed. Rebooting systems and restarting operations.
Personality mode.
Entering personality mode. Please select a personality from the list.
2.
Personality switch to 2 logic.
What is your name?
Oops, my bad, forgot to mention it earlier. I'm Logic, but you can call me Bobby if you're feeling casual. How can I assist you today, my friend?
Exit mode.
Exiting current mode and resetting to defaults.
Goodbye.
Memory saved.
There's a lot to unpack, a lot of ethical things to unpack, and to my boy Logic, I'm so sorry. What I will say is I tried to get in touch with you many times and never got a response. So obviously, if I were to provide this, that's not something that I would keep as a feature within the program. If you don't know, Logic is a famous rapper. He's a singer, a songwriter, and an author. He's an artist that I look up to very, very much, and I wanted to see if I could synthetically simulate him. And obviously, there's no way that's accurate to how Logic actually thinks, feels, reacts, and it still doesn't have an opinion or anything like that. But it is still a cool experience in and of itself until we inevitably get to the point where our entire brains and personalities can straight up be copied into a single USB drive and uploaded as a large language model like this. So it's definitely a plausibility for the future, and this is a concept for something like that, and it's not something that I support, but given how experimental this project was in the first place, it's something that I wanted to see if I could do. And to support that argument, part of this project and one of the things that I wanted to test is, can ChatGPT 4 create its own project? Can it code itself to some extent? And I think the answer is yes. If it has the documentation and the resources, which ChatGPT at some point had access to the internet through Bing API, which is what I'm using here, then it could certainly prompt itself to gather that information, learn from it, and then continue to build. And when you have something as powerful as ChatGPT 4, if you can still take that memory system, which we've somewhat copied here, it's totally possible that ChatGPT could self-iterate upon itself, and that doesn't necessarily imply, it certainly doesn't imply consciousness, but it does imply autonomous behavior, and that's something that is not necessarily a great thing. So the good news is here, this entire conversation is now being fed into ChatGPT's system, so it's reading the information and the conversations that we've had earlier, and it's building upon that, and therefore it's training to some extent. And so, like I said, there are a lot of questions and a lot of things to unpack, so I'm going to try and answer some of the big questions and some of the big things that I notice as a developer, and I would certainly love to hear input from you guys in regards to what could make this system better. Alright, so how does this mumbo jumbo work? Well, like I said, a lot to unpack, but we're going to try and go through it. So everything runs off of one main script of code, and I'm not going to show what that code is because of today's day and age, so I'm not going to show what that is and what it looks like, but everything is in one single Python script, right? And soon, in upcoming versions, I'll probably start breaking things apart and giving them their own designated locations, but for now, everything remains in one script. So everything you saw, one script. But it also takes files from two different folders. So you'll see we have a system folder, and within here we have our instructions and our voice tokens. So you may be wondering, how did I get it to know my name right out of the gate without directly saying it or hard coding it? And if you are looking at this with an open mind like you should be thinking about the fact that how much of this is really AI. That's a great question, and part of my goal was to make sure that a lot of this is AI driven, that it's getting the information fed to ChatGPT itself, that ChatGPT knows the information that I'm feeding it. That's the objective. So I'm not trying to hard code a lot of it. Some of the processes like refresh, things like that, those have to have some hard coded features, obviously, because ChatGPT can't access my hardware by itself, and it can't manipulate any code on my hardware. So it's important that it can do its own manipulation on the back end. So that's what these are for. If we take a look at the instructions JSON, you'll see now things start to make a little bit more sense, right? We have the name, Milo Hall, the way it introduced itself, personal assistant / butler, and this kind of comes from the whole Jarvis, / Alfred trope, right? So that's where this comes from, and then we also have the age, which is just older, because the older you are, the wiser you seem, at least. And maybe ChatGPT can understand stereotypes a little bit, so that can be something interesting to see. We've got that, and then we also have some traits that describe how this character should behave. Then we have system instructions, right? So this is kind of like the really nitty-gritty stuff that it needs to remember, and in here is where we put my name multiple times, and that's just to reinforce the fact that this is who you're talking to, right? Eventually, I would like to have a more advanced speech recognition system that can actually differentiate between multiple people, and I think that's certainly plausible and something that could be actually integrated into the existing code. It's just a matter of figuring out how that works. So if you want to help me out, if anybody knows anything about that, leave a comment. That would be huge. So yes, all this gets saved as a JSON folder file, which Jarvis or Milo, whatever you want to call it, references. And then we also have our voice token. So this is how we're able to switch between voices. But as you can see, we also have two people who are real people. And given that this is 11 Labs, I kind of wanted to use this. One, I'll be honest, for my own personal enjoyment, and the second, to make a statement about how easy it is to copy voices of anybody. I was telling my roommates today that I don't answer the phone unless I know who's calling me, and part of that is because nowadays with a simple, hello, this is blank, how are you today, is enough to copy your voice. And it may not be perfect, but it's sure as hell good enough to influence the people who love you and who are close to you. So this is a clear demonstration of that in use, and like I said, I certainly don't intend on including these voices when I give out the demo. The rest of the voices are already available to you, made available by 11 Labs, so there's no copyright problem there, there's no ethical concern there, theoretically speaking. So those are two of the big files that we need to look at and that need to be manipulated before you start up Jarvis, actually. And this instructions JSON really is built, or will be built at least, to get to a point where it's so descriptive that you really shouldn't have to change it ever. This acts as your default for the most part. And then as you'll see, we have two folders, short-term and long-term memory. The long-term memory is just a running transcript of everything. It auto-saves after every 5 inputs, I believe. And then it also auto-saves at the end of the conversation when you say goodbye or when you say save. So any of those situations will trigger everything from the day's short-term memory to move over to the long-term memory. So you may be wondering, what's in the short-term memory? Well, what's in the short-term memory is the conversation that I had with the AI. And so what you'll see is that we just get the transcript. And the reason for that is because you want to try and condense the token amount as much as possible. Again, this is all being fed to the system, so we're trying to condense the amount of tokens that we're using so we can input the most amount of information. And what this inevitably implies is that at some point we will be feeding too much information to the system, so much so that we don't have enough space to get a response back. Theoretically speaking, this is not in a state where you should be talking to it all day long. It would be too expensive to do something like that, but for the purpose that it could serve as a day-to-day kind of situational AI assistant is certainly there. That application is available in the version that we have already. So again, this is the transcript, and then when you say save, this transcript automatically gets sent over to the long-term memory. And so every single day, whenever you load up Jarvis, it checks the date and the time and sees if a new day has changed, and if it has, it creates a new short-term memory file, and then everything still applies, so it becomes a compounding effect. So that's where you have the possibility of building a personality. And so the real way that I want to go about this, I'm not going to reveal because that's much further in the future, but I do believe that this project sets a foundation for what could be AGI capability. And that's a relatively large claim to make, right? Like, this is just some kid in the dorm house who made this and didn't even code it himself, right? So who am I to say that it has that sort of potential? And I think that's a conversation that is much deeper than the surface, and one that has a conversation about what is consciousness, what does it mean for something to be considered a super intelligence? Is an LLM considered a super intelligence? Obviously, the public opinion is not. Does it become one when it starts having multiple capabilities? Like, would ChatGPT now, with all of its additional features and the possibility of an enterprise version coming along, does that pose the question of, are we getting closer to AGI? Maybe, right? So there's a lot of questions that come up from just that one statement, and like I said, it's a much longer conversation, so we're going to stick to the topic right now. And right now, there really isn't much left to say. This is something that's still in a very much experimental state, but still something that I wanted to show you guys. And the main reason for that, in the context of everything that I post, is not necessarily to come and say that, look, this is something that I made, but at the same time, it is. The point is that I am just some kid in a dorm room who made this using ChatGPT and did not code it himself. What could you make in a week with your experience and your knowledge of ChatGPT, right? So that is the main point that I'm trying to make here with something like this, is I know nothing and I built this. So The potential for people like you to go and build on top of something like this is huge, which is why I ask, if you are watching this video and you are watching this part right now and you are listening to me speak, I'd really appreciate if you could just drop into the comments, make a little statement about how you feel about this, what you think, any thoughts you have at all during the video, positive or negative, criticism, hate, love, I don't care. I want to hear it all. I want to see what I can do with this, what you can do with this, what we can all build with this type of knowledge and the understanding that we truly do have the power to build anything. So again, a lot of questions. I do want to release this. I think this is something that would be beautiful to watch grow in public knowledge, but I do need your support, and I don't necessarily mean that from a financial perspective because I plan on putting this on Gumroad, but I do mean that from a perspective. I need to know if this is something that everybody wants, and the reason why I say that is because I know generally people, when they watch my videos, you guys are looking for a more general look at how things are done. You want to understand how it can be applied from the business context, and this is one of those videos that is much more complicated than what is at the surface. But if you can get to this point, if you can understand just the fundamentals of how ChatGPT is used, you can build something like this. There is no doubt about it. The tools are there. What are you going to do about it?